Here we go. All right. Thank you for being here, everyone. I'm Becky Morinishi. I'm chair of CPO6 at Loa, Reedville, and Cooper Mountain. And Ken Seymour here is vice chair. Do you want to say hi really quick, Ken? There we go. And we are glad to have you all here tonight after this beautiful day that we had. We're going to go ahead and get started pretty quickly because we have a lot to get through, and I want to try to get us out of here on time tonight. So we're going to start with our community briefings, and we're going to have Washington County Sheriff's Office. And I'd like to welcome Lucy. She's here with us for the first time tonight, and Deputy, oh, who's here? Deputy, I'm looking around.
Mackenzie.
Oh, there we go, Mackenzie, sorry. Welcome, glad to have you. And you can go ahead and just give us a little
I'll take
update.
it. I'll leave Deputy Mackenzie to start off. I think he has just the calls for service thing that I will attempt to share. And then anything else that he wants to cover.
Yeah, so while she's pulling that up, hopefully you guys can see that. What you'll see is in red is all of our thefts in this area. And kind of coinciding with all that in green, dark green is our frauds and our burglaries. So those can kind of all be blended together depending on what the situation is. But the important thing to realize there is kind of what we can do to protect ourselves from that, in my opinion. And in lieu of going on a long diatribe here, I'm open for questions, but the biggest thing we can do, I think, to protect ourselves from the theft, locking doors, keeping things out of plain sight in our vehicles or in our windows of our homes, having cameras if that's within your means, putting up spotlights or motion sensor lights, so when somebody walks by or up to your driveway, up to your vehicle, things like that, it hopefully will deter them from being seen and committing these crimes. The fraud side of things, if you get phone calls or emails or correspondence from people you don't recognize claiming that you owe money, or that well, typically it's that you owe money, whether you bought a cell phone through AT&T and you didn't do that, or you owe money for a certain company that you clearly do not. But even if you think you might, don't answer those. Don't directly respond to those emails, those texts, or those phone calls. Contact that company directly through a number you find to be reputable on the internet. Most often, it's very obvious when these things are fraudulent. The grammar, the text, the word usage will be off. It won't be professional. The emails will be pretty obviously not from that company. And the phone numbers will be not from that company. So these are all simple things we can do. I take calls daily from people who are defrauded, and it's obviously not their fault, but at the end of the day, it's just kind of double checking who this correspondence is coming from, and that'll save you in the long run. So again, with all that, I'm open to questions if anybody has any.
We had one question in the chat. What is the difference between theft and burglary?
Burglary, generally speaking, means somebody enters a residence or a dwelling and then commits a crime therein. So difference between burglary and trespass, if I wander into somebody's home uninvited without the authority from that homeowner, but then I just stand in the living room and do nothing else, that's going to be a trespass. Still a crime, of course, and still not what we want. If I enter somebody's home or dwelling and I steal something, or I break something, or I commit some other sort of crime, that becomes a burglary.
Thank you. Is there any information on? Oh, yeah, that looks great.
Okay, I can actually maybe that. Okay.
Is there any information available about whether there's been an increase or decrease since last time, or if it's pretty much stayed about the same?
Yeah, forgive me. This is my first CPO meeting in a few years, and so I haven't really been tracking the stats. What I can tell you is, in my experience, I'm on our graveyard shift now, so I don't take a lot of the theft and the cold frauds and things like that. Cold meaning it happened. It's not happening right now. But when I was on swing shift from 12 noon to 10 p.m. at night, these are when these calls come in. People are awake, realizing when they've been victims of crimes. I didn't see necessarily an increase in frauds and thefts in the short term, but I do think in the last few years there has been an increase in fraudulent activity. I think there has been, it's really my opinion and my experience, but I think there has been an increase overall in the county in thefts, package thefts, vehicle break-ins, things like that.
Thanks. Is there like any kind of consensus as to what might be leading to the increase?
No, I mean, I couldn't give you an educated answer on that. I think with the fraud, stuff over the internet, phone, that's going to be just the prevalence of it, of kind of everyone being on the internet these days, right? And we've had it for a long time, but as things move to online banking, online shopping, everything being done online, your information, unfortunately, is just out there more and more, and people are getting better and better at being criminals. I mean, there's full-blown like call center type rooms in foreign countries that do this for a living.
Let's see, we do have a question. Are we seeing any reduction in package thefts due to the efforts to deter them?
I think so. Again, I can speak from my experience. I can't speak on the stats directly, but I think so. I think people are buying cameras. I think the camera systems like Ring, which I own myself, there's kind of like a social media aspect to that. So people are talking about it more, educating people more, and that's really what it takes. I know that I have cameras and I have a specific spot that I request Amazon. I'm a huge Amazon addict. I request Amazon to put my packages in a specific spot. So I have a little kind of RV offshoot of my driveway where I keep my trash cans, and I ask them to put my packages behind my trash cans. It keeps it out of sight. If people don't see things as they're walking by, they're probably not going to go on your property and risk that. So I think just the education overall, yes, I think there's a decrease. It's not as much as we'd want, of course, but I think in the Aloha area, I haven't seen the calls coming out as much.
Great, thank you. Good information.
And just to follow up, I'll stop sharing my screen, but in the chat, I'll share a couple just safety, like our October safety tips. One of them is kind of more like Halloween centered, and the other one is a pretty standard sort of message that we put out kind of all year, but it's called the 9 p.m. like lockup routine. So certain things that you can try to get yourself to do, on a nightly basis. We say 9 p.m. because generally that's kind of around when people are starting to go to bed, which include to turn on your outside lights, lock your car doors, bring anything in from like your porch or deck or anything like that that might be somewhat enticing for people to grab. So I'll share those two, either I will or Becky will, if I can, those two PDFs in our chat for you to just have. Other than that, I'm Lucy. I'm the new community outreach liaison for this region. So I'll also put my contact information. So I'm your go-to person now. I think before you had Cody, and I know she was really great. So I have big shoes to fill, but I'm going to try my best. I come from the DA's office. I was a victim advocate for 5 years here at Washington County. So I have a little bit of experience in like the reactive side of criminal justice. So I'm excited to be on more of the proactive side. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. We appreciate you. Okay, we're going to move on to Tim from THPRD. Hi, Tim.
Hello. Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Bonin. I am with Tualatin Hills Park and Rec District. I work in the Design and Development Department. And I'm excited to let you know that Harmon Swim Center is now open. It is our only pool that we heat up to 89 degrees, so it makes it especially well suited for young children and seniors. So please come join us for lap swim, open exercise, and fitness classes. As for events for October, we have on Wednesday the 12th, our virtual regular meeting of the Board of Directors at 7:30 p.m. And on Thursday, the 13th, we have Parktober celebration at West Sylvan Middle School at 5:30 p.m. Please come join us for this special fall celebration with free giveaways and youth activities. It's also our first design workshop for the future park at Southwest Pointer Road. And this new park is just east, about a half-mile east of the West Sylvan Middle School, just south of 26. This will be a new neighborhood park that we are looking to design for the community. Then on Saturday the 15th, we have our Halloween Silly Walk at Conestoga Rec and Aquatic Center at 4 p.m. This is a fun, family-friendly Halloween outdoor event. Little ones get to daylight trick-or-treat throughout the parking lot, enjoy a DJ dance party, and some favorite character meet and greets. Costumes are encouraged, and be sure to bring your trick-or-treat bag. And on Wednesday, the 19th, we have our virtual joint advisory committees meeting. So all the committees will be meeting together at 6 p.m. And on Saturday, the 29th, we have the Fall Family Fun Fest at Cedar Hills Recreation Center at 10 a.m. This is a fun, family-oriented event with crafts and other games for all the people to enjoy. And then we also, on the same day, have Zenpa Su Chill Festival at Conestoga Rec and Aquatic Center at 4 p.m. Learn about the traditional Day of the Dead marigold flower. The Zenpa Su Chill flower, the marigold, is a meaningful plant for the Mesoamerican culture, native to what's known today as Mexico. As native tradition dictates, before Dia de los Muertos, the marigold flower is harvested, and many dishes, soups, and teas are made with the petals and leaves. So this event will feature 12+ vendors with arts and crafts, as well as food and a variety of traditional performances in a community altar. And as always, we have one-day volunteer opportunities for individuals and families that can be found on our website. That's what I have for you this month.
Great. That sounds awesome. Thanks, Tim.
Sure.
All right. We are going to move along to Travis from Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue.
Good evening. I'd like to start off with the status of the district. We've had an exponential increase in call volume. And you guys may or may not have noticed it. We're doing a lot of transport for Metro West ambulance as well, but we're answering the bell. It's busy. I think we got a little lucky this summer with the wildfire season here in the local area, but it would just move on to the next thing. That being said, I'd like to take a minute to remind you guys to check your smoke detectors every month if possible, but at a minimum, every time you set your clock forward or backward. And if you have a wood burning fireplace, remember to get that cleaned. And then we want to talk about space heaters. It's going to start cooling off here in the next couple weeks, and remind everyone to keep that area clear around a space heater. Are there any questions for the fire district? Any questions?
I got one quick one. Wasn't you guys are moving a fire station down on TV Highway in 206, somewhere in that area? Is that moving? Or
So Hillsborough, actually, Washington County purchased this property.
yeah,
This fire station will be relocated to Pheasant and 185th. But we will not move from here until that station is complete.
yeah, I thought they were moving somewhere. So
Yeah, it's going to help out significantly with the gap over there. So there's a triangle between Butner Road, 185th and 26th, and Beaverton, main downtown Beaverton, and here. That'll allow us to hit those times a little bit faster. And then Hillsborough will be pushing the station out this way, I believe.
right, okay.
Great. Thank you so
Any
much.
other questions? All right.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Andrea from Tualatin Valley Water District.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having us tonight. I've got a couple announcements specific to your area. I'm filling in for Justin today. He's taken a little well-deserved vacation. He did not take the summer off. We've been doing some different type of outreach events, sort of trying to meet people where they are, and we're calling them pop-ups. And there's going to be one in your area on Saturday, October 15th. And that's going to be at the 189th Reservoir and Pump Station from 9 to 10 in the morning. And we'll just set up a table and have coffee and water and donuts and answer any questions that our customers might have. And there's a bunch of signs right there to help people know in advance. That would be great if you would join us there. We have some future projects coming up in your area. There's a lot of construction and growth coming there. So we'll be trying to sign people up there at the event to get the newsletter for the upcoming changes in 2024. There's also a project at 209th in Farmington, and that's a pressure facility. The site grading is in its final stages, and then they'll have paving, topsoils and stuff at the very end of the project. They're going to do some prepping for the winter season, including adding some rock to the access roads and straw on the exposed areas to keep erosion from happening. And the next thing on that site will be underground piping and pipe restraint blocks. That'll be starting next week if it happens as scheduled. See a lot of delays right now with construction and labor issues. We also have a drone flyover scheduled to showcase this stage, as we're going to just keep kind of trying to help the community see this infrastructure. And then they'll be connecting to a 30-inch transmission pipe on 209th to follow. That will involve traffic impacts, which they'll announce to anybody who signed up for the list. Last week, our board or 2 weeks ago, made the final rate change action. And starting November 1st, fixed and variable volume charges will increase by 14.25%. The way our billing works, most people see these increases like next year when they start irrigating. We've gotten some feedback from customers that they think the timing of this is designed to sort of keep those increases hidden. That's not the case. We try to do them now so people have almost a full year to prepare and to make improvements or change their landscaping. And we just want to be available if people want tips for conservation. We have lots of videos. We've been doing those monthly talking waters, and our next one of those will be on October 19th, and that'll be about preparing for winter weather. There's a lot of things in your own home that can really help your pipes from freezing. So I know that's a lot, but that's what I have. If you have any questions, I'll hang around, and then I'll also put my contact information in the chat because I have another meeting at 7:30. So I'm gonna have to leave before you're done.
Great. That was a lot of great information.
Yeah,
Any questions?
Yeah, real quick. I drove by Grabhorn the other day, and it was a lot of construction going on. What's going on over there? It looks like conduits and water pipes and stuff.
Yeah, I think that is part of this prep for the 209th and Farmington.
Okay.
Ultimately, that's where it's going to link. In the long term, they'll link up to the Willamette water supply there, and so I think they're starting that underground piping. So maybe they got started a little bit earlier than we think, but.
Yeah, they're making good progress. It looked like to me. So.
Yeah. We either have the crews or we don't.
Right.
So there's that. But.
Thanks. Okay.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, I'll put my contact information in Justin. I'll be back with you next month.
Great. Thank you so much for being here.
Sure.
Really appreciate it. All right. So if you are here from the school district to talk about the levy, please raise your hand so that I can add you as a panelist. Anyone? I'm wondering if the person calling in on the phone is from the school district. I'm not sure. All right. Well, in that case, we are going to go ahead and move along to Sarah Phipps from City of Beaverton to give us an update on the Cooper Mountain plan. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. And if we do end up getting a school district representative, please, kind of flag me down so I can save some time at the end. All right, I will go ahead and share my screen. So I am Sarah Phipps. I'm with the Planning Division at the City of Beaverton, and it's been a few months. I think it was back in March of this year was the last time that we gave an update on Cooper Mountain. So I wanted to share what's happened over the last few months, what we've heard from City Council, and kind of what's next on our process and upcoming meetings. So I'm sure many of you are very familiar with the project area, but this map shows, the kind of 3 sub areas that make up Cooper Mountain. So a lot of development happening in South Cooper Mountain, shown in the blue. Then we have North Cooper Mountain. This orange boundary is the 1,200 acre project area. So that's where we're doing more detailed planning, coming up with zoning, figuring out how to extend utilities to this area, provide new roads and parks and trails. So we'll talk a little bit about how that plan is shaping up. So when we came to CPO6 back in March, at that time we were looking at the 3 plan alternatives, and they showed different ways that we could plan for Cooper Mountain. So different road networks, different numbers of housing units, and different levels of natural resource protection as well. So this spring we went to City Council. We did a lot of engagement. We had an open house in the spring. We summarized all of that and brought it to City Council for direction on, what would they like to see as we develop what we're calling the preferred approach. So kind of going from 3 plans down to 1. And what we heard from them at that time was, let's think about ways to provide flexibility for property owners and developers. There was a lot of support for providing commercial opportunities in the area, planning for more than the minimum amount of housing units. And then we also heard that this is an opportunity to prioritize equity, active transportation, and natural resources as well. I think we all know that there's a lot of, really rich and valuable natural resources in the area, and that's something that really comes to mind for folks when you start talking about Cooper Mountain. So the preferred approach is really our first attempt at incorporating this direction and applying what we've really learned over the last 2 years from studies as well as from community engagement. So this map shows what we're calling the concept map for Cooper Mountain. So the different colors that you see on this map are different land uses, different densities, and really it shows kind of the outcomes of the preferred approach. So I'll just describe kind of what these different colors you see here on the maps. The red that you see we have is a commercial area. So we have 2 commercial centers, one up at 175th and Weir, and the other down toward Tile Flat Road. The might be hard to see on screen, but there's kind of a hatched red and orange. This is really flexible zoning. So it allows for commercial, but it also allows for residential. So if it were developed as kind of multi-unit dwellings, apartment, as an example, that would be allowed. The difference here is that the commercial is required in the red, but allowed, not required, in the kind of that orange and red hashed area. The orange areas that you see, these are multi-family zoning. And then the yellow, kind of yellow beige, that's what we're calling our residential mixed area. So this is where you would find the majority of single detached homes and middle housing types like duplexes and cottage clusters. And then we see a lot of green on the map. These are areas that represent natural resources, we have the darker shades of green for the Cooper Mountain Nature Park, and then we have Winkleman as well. We have a target of providing at least one new neighborhood park per area. So you can see Grabhorn Meadow, Cooper Lowlands. These are what we're calling kind of different neighborhood sub areas. And the goal is to have a neighborhood park that people can walk to within each of those kind of sub districts. The kind of dashed green and blue lines that you see, those are potential new collector and neighborhood routes. So thinking about how to connect these new neighborhoods, and also trying to limit impacts to those natural resource areas. All right, so I wanted to hit on these kind of thematically. So focusing in on housing first, we had a minimum number of housing units that we had to plan for, and that was 3,760. That number came from the concept plan that the city completed back in 2015. And again, we heard from our council, let's plan for more than the minimum. We also have these new middle housing rules, new rules that came down from the state through House Bill 2001. So that's part of the reason for the range, is we don't know exactly how many units we're going to get, because these new middle housing rules allow for a variety of housing types on a lot where maybe in the past we would have seen a single detached home. So that's part of the reason for the range in housing units. We still have a target of 10% of those total units would be regulated affordable housing. That's probably a follow-up implementation item. Obviously, funding is going to be critical to make that one happen. And then we have been talking to council as well as our community advisory committee about having a minimum requirement for middle housing. So because middle housing is allowed everywhere, it doesn't necessarily mean that it will be built. So we've been talking about establishing a minimum, potentially based on the site size. So maybe smaller lots would be exempt from having to provide middle housing, but larger developments may need to provide. We've been, initially talking about 30% would be the target for middle housing. And then the last idea kind of for that residential mix zone where we expect to see middle housing is making sure it's not separated from single detached homes. So having some sort of policies and standards in place that require those middle housing types to be distributed more evenly throughout neighborhoods. All right, and moving on to commercial. As I pointed out on the map, we have two neighborhood commercial centers. They're about 5 acres in size. We had that flexible kind of mixed use zoning next to it that would allow for expansion if the market is there, if there's demand for more commercial. It could be that it's just the 5 acres. It could be commercial pads. This is just an example of kind of that scale of commercial development where you could have multiple tenants. In addition to the commercially zoned areas, we've also had conversations with community members and council about allowing really small scale commercial uses within neighborhoods and where those would be most appropriate. So perhaps, across from neighborhood parks where there's already, kind of a draw, people are going to the park as kind of a destination within the neighborhood. Thinking about allowing commercial uses on certain types of streets, maybe those new neighborhood routes, and then also near properties that are zoned for multi-dwelling. So, density tends to kind of support those businesses. And so allowing it near the multi-dwelling units would have kind of, hopefully built-in customers nearby. Wanted to look at the chat real quick. Yeah, there's a question about transit, and TriMet's definitely experiencing some challenges, having to cut service in some areas. And we're working with TriMet. I know that they're kind of hesitant to make any promises about service expansion in a certain time frame. What we've heard from them is that it's really important to think about having a mix of land uses. So having the commercial and parks and residential uses within close proximity to one another. That way you're able to hopefully have ridership throughout the day instead of just the peak kind of AM and PM commuter hours. So that having that mix of uses is something they look for. Having density is something that they look for as well. And then there's also a piece about the road design, ensuring that there's safe places for for buses to pull off and stop, and of course, sidewalks and pedestrian facilities for people to safely get on and off the bus. Good question. All right, next we have parks. As I mentioned, we're targeting one new neighborhood park within each area. There are also community parks, and these are a bit larger in scale. They kind of draw, patrons from a little further out. And so Winkleman Park is an example of a community park, and we have identified the need for one more in Cooper Mountain. We also have plans for 2 urban plazas. So these would be located in the commercial areas. And then potentially even kind of trailhead parks, as we have some trails planned for Cooper Mountain as well. The park locations and sizes that you saw on the map are definitely conceptual at this point. So we are working with THPRD, to figure out, how would we implement this, where might funding come from, and then of course building those relationships with property owners and developers is really important. Okay, and natural resources. All right. Sorry, I thought I skipped a slide. We realize that there are many different types of natural resources in Cooper Mountain. There are creeks, forested areas, wildlife corridors, and then we also have this project goal of providing needed housing. So we're trying to come up with an approach that really best seeks to balance our goals of natural resource protection and housing. And this is likely going to require entirely new policies and development code standards for the city, because taking a look at our existing tree code, I think that we feel safe saying that it wouldn't adequately protect the resources and trees that we want to see preserved and integrated into new development in this area. So we are in the process of developing a kind of draft approach to natural resource protection that looks at some new strategies and things that we could add into the code. One of which is looking at tree canopy coverage, kind of as a whole for this area, setting a tree canopy target. So that really would allow us to look at kind of what's the 30-year tree canopy coverage for this area, and where are areas that we want to preserve more existing trees versus areas that might be more appropriate for mitigation and replanting. Maybe it's an agricultural field, and so there's not a lot there now, but there would be opportunity to grow over time. So when we're also looking into incentives to help, hopefully encourage people to retain mature trees. I think that's something that, we've heard a lot over the last few months from community members. I know that our council, there's been a lot of testimony about natural resources. And so, we're hearing you and we appreciate the comments, and, hopefully we'll have something here for you to review. Because this is an exciting part of the project, coming up with this new natural resource and tree code. So you know Cooper Mountain best, and I think having your input into especially this piece of it will be really helpful. So we plan to return to City Council this fall, actually to talk primarily about natural resource protection. So that work session is scheduled for November 15th. And I think I have that on the next couple slides. It's kind of jumping back to the map. I just wanted to mention the zoning. So the concept map had a lot going on. This is just the zoning for the area. So you can see that the majority of it is that residential mixed, the kind of light yellow zone. I should mention, we do not have a park zone or a kind of institutional use zone in the city. So that's why you see residential use applied to the Cooper Mountain Nature Park. That doesn't mean that it will be developed with houses. We are also considering what we call overlay zones. So these are areas that kind of fall on top of the base zones and would have special regulations that apply to them. And so one of those overlays is for significant natural resources. We've also been talking about, in kind of previous iterations of this idea, it was called the cluster neighborhood. Now we have a conservation residential overlay. Whether this conservation residential overlay is the way to go, I think is up for discussion, but the idea is that we would have rules and incentives in place to help limit impacts on significant natural resources, and then to encourage those retention of existing mature trees. Okay, so kind of a little bit about our process, because it has been a long one. We are right now in the midst of doing some technical analyses. So we are required to do a traffic impact analysis based on the preferred approach. We also need to do some utility modeling and planning to show how we can extend sewer and water and stormwater service to this area. It may be an iterative process because all of these things are related. So as we learn more about our approach to natural resource protection, how roads and utilities serve the area, kind of cost and revenue as estimates that plug into the infrastructure funding plan, we may need to go back and kind of make refinements as we learn more from each of those different studies. So we've started that technical work. This winter, the project team will start writing those land use policies that will eventually live in the community plan document itself. Once we've done the utility modeling, then we can identify infrastructure needs, infrastructure costs, develop the funding plan. And then we have the actual code. So these are the kind of rules and regulations that will help implement the community plan, and they will apply to properties as they come into the city and then submit, at least some people are interested in submitting proposals for development. That work will hopefully wrap up next spring, and then we'll have kind of hearing ready drafts ready for review. That's when we'll begin our work sessions again, and then eventually have public hearings before both the Planning Commission and our City Council. So we have a goal of wrapping this up by the end of next fiscal year, which would be next July. And then these are more immediate next steps. Next Wednesday evening, which is October 12th, we're going to the Planning Commission to have a work session on the kind of zoning ideas for the residential mixed zone, that yellow that was applied to majority of the plan area. So that'll focus on those minimum requirements for middle housing and small scale commercial uses. And then on October 27th, which is a Thursday, our meeting starts at 5:30. We have our next Community Advisory Committee meeting. We'll be talking about some potential updates to the concept map, primarily to the collector road alignments. As we did a bit more engineering work, we shouldn't be surprised, but we found out that the topography is quite challenging. And when we need to, keep our road grades, under a certain percentage and think about how, other intersections, where they need to be located, it's likely that we'll have to make some refinements to those road alignments. And then we'll also be focusing on that natural resource approach at the October 27th meeting. And then last, we have a city council work session on natural resources on November 15th. I think that is it. I was going to go look at the chat here. We do have, first question was about, are these maps available? We do have a project webpage, and I can enter it in here. Oh, and it's shown on the slide, beavertonoregon.gov/cm for Cooper Mountain. So all of our, past reports and maps are available there. I should note that we will be adding new information here around October 20th, probably give or take a couple days. And that will be information that we'll be discussing with the Community Advisory Committee on the 27th. So stay tuned for new information coming out. Yeah, there's a question about new trails. And I should say, kind of with all of the alignments, be it trails or roads, I would call this kind of 10% design work. These are going to be adopted into the community plan as development occurs over time. There's much more engineering work that needs to be done. The topography is certainly one challenge, but then also thinking about, where do those property lines fall in relation to some of these trail and road alignments? Are there, shifts that can help avoid impacts to properties and structures? That's certainly something that happens, as developments come in for a land use review in the future. All right, I think I hit most of the questions there. Anyone else have comments or questions? Fran.
Yeah, thank you very much, Casera. This is a real challenge for the city of Beaverton. Metro has imposed this, if you're going to expand your urban growth boundary, then you have this requirement of the 3,750 new dwellings. So it's a real challenge to figure out how are we going to protect the resources, protect the existing quality of life of the existing residents, and all of this combined. I was very pleased to see that the Beaverton City Council is very much interested in preserving the pristine nature of Cooper Mountain. And what it is we, I can't say because I don't live there anymore, but even though my heart is there, but they really need to hear from the residents who live there about what is the priority of things, et cetera. I've been participating a lot with both the roads and the natural resources. Friends of Cooper Mountain Nature Park have been talking with Metro and THPRD about acquiring as much of the land for protection, conservation, stewardship as possible. And it's people, Metro said it was okay for me to mention at CPO6, if property owners have property that they feel that, big amounts of property, meaning more than an acre or something, or groups of property owners want to put their property under conservancy or stewardship or whatever, or are interested in having it acquired, maybe let me know. I can let you know who to contact, et cetera, at Metro, because they are actively looking. They have a 2009 bond issue that has monies in it. And so they are looking for that so we can protect, if you can't get someone to behave properly, you can just buy it and do the right thing. So just everybody should know about that. And all these things that didn't happen with THPRD on South Cooper Mountain that we're concerned about, we are pressing to make these parks happen. So my question to you, Casera, is what can we as a community do with helping this funding? There's a lot under this administration right now. We have a lot of federal funds that seem to be available. You've got a lot of ideas about climate projects, natural resource projects. Can we as a community help you with some of that funding stuff? And so maybe you can talk to us offline, but I think that if we help with some of this financing through the grant process, that might also help us to help ourselves. Anyway, I hope I haven't spoken too much, but I'm really pleased with as far as, there are a lot of constraints, but this is a much more listening group of planners than we've ever had before.
Yeah, thank you, Fran, and thanks for mentioning the Metro bond. We're kind of tracking that closely, working with Metro staff, because Cooper Mountain is identified as a target area for those funds. There are quite a few target areas, but they are looking for willing sellers, and that's a requirement to using that funding. Fran, yeah, if there are other kind of funds out there that we should be aware of at the federal level, typically we're, working with Clean Water Services and THPRD and Metro to understand kind of, what applies to transportation and what applies to, what could we use for trails or utilities to try to kind of piece something together. And through this project, we kind of found that, a lot of those needs for utilities and roads and trails are within the same general area. And so there might be opportunity to, kind of break costs down by having those funds come from kind of different buckets. So thank you for your support too, Fran. So you send a lot of good ideas and examples for us to look to, as you are an expert in not only Cooper Mountain, but natural resources.
Yeah, because Sarah, I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking of another strategy that might help mitigate the multifamily visual impact. Have you guys thought about setting aside a geographic area to minimize the impact to the natural resources with areas of maybe tiny houses, stuff like that, where you could strategically place a little parcel for people to have their tiny houses, and maybe that would have less impact to the natural resources in some areas?
Yeah, that idea has definitely come up, kind of this clustering concept, where if you have multiple kind of smaller homes together, that might free up more open space on another portion of the lot for for the existing trees or for wildlife movement. So that's definitely something we're looking into, particularly in those areas that do have a lot of existing tree canopy and have been identified as wildlife corridors. We're looking for kind of what are those effective strategies? Fencing and lighting are a part of it, but where do those buildings go? How big are their footprints is an important question.
Sure. Just thought I'd ask. So.
Yeah, thank you. Fran.
I have one more question. I get a little nervous on your picture with the maps with the trails on it. One of the trails that goes north of Kemmer, am I seeing the 185th extension showing up again, or is that further west, I hope?
Sorry, let me pull up a map here.
I don't know if you picked up on that, Ken, but it goes right through the natural area again.
Yeah, I think we might just be kind of an arrow.
Because we just got that one kiboshed. And
right, is it right up here?
I mean, I know it's tough to figure out where it's going to go, but
here you go.
Yeah.
Right up here.
Yeah, the road that goes right up next to the reservoir, that's that new road there.
Yeah. So where is that?
Yeah, so this, I think this is where.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, where the extension, was proposed by Washington County.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So that hasn't been determined yet. Okay. Okay,
No, yeah, and really anything that would go north of Kemmer is outside of the project area. Of course, you know, wildlife and things don't stop at that boundary, but
yeah,
yeah.
we'll figure it out.
yeah.
Ken?
Okay, well, I'll put my contact information in the chat, but thank you so much for your time tonight, and I'm sure I'll be seeing you all again soon. So thank you.
Sarah, we have one
Oh.
more person who had just raised their hand, I thought. Oh, yes, we do. Sophia, you can go ahead and talk, Sophia, after you unmute. There you go.
Okay, so I unmuted.
We can hear you.
Thank you. I have a half acre up here. It is on the roundabout of 175th, going downhill on Kemmer. I am dying to have an ADU put in the backyard, as in multi dwelling, middle housing. However, the architects are saying, oh my God, Washington County, I can't work there. Oh my God, Washington County, this will take 6 months to get your 500 square foot building approved. I'm thinking, I have a building, it's 500 square foot, I have a half acre. Why is it so difficult for someone to say, whoa, let's go for it? That would make this property like 2 units. I live in the house in front. It's called a farmhouse. I am having a tough time saying, okay, let's do it, because somebody wants to just tear it down and start over, which does not make sense to me. Materials are expensive. I am willing to do an ADU in my backyard. I just cannot find somebody to actually do it. Is this called middle housing? And how do I get unstuck?
Yeah, the ADUs are or accessory dwelling units. They're definitely a kind of piece of the whole middle housing conversation. And there was actually I think a separate House bill or Senate bill that passed that was related to ADUs. Because you are in Washington County and not the city of Beaverton, I would suggest reaching out to their land use and transportation team if you haven't done so already. And Becky, Ken, you may have a better idea of also of where the county's at and updating their development code for the middle housing. Has that passed yet?
I have not heard anything on that.
That's a good question. I don't know either, but I can check it out.
Can I add that I have a buck and a doe and her offspring in my front yard? And it's not like I have been here over 40 years. So I've seen the changes. It's not like I'm looking for anything extra special. It's a farmhouse. And just to put an extra unit in the back, it shouldn't be that difficult. And I did look up on the county website. The price wasn't bad. They were accepting prior dwellings that were already on the property. But to find an architect that says, okay, let's go for it. Is Washington County, and that might not be the appropriate question, is Washington County giving groups of people harder times? Because in Washington County, you have like South Hillsborough as a new place on Blanton. You have all the places off of Tile Flat that are taking priorities in the planning zone committees. How do I find a place as a private homeowner to say, you know what, all the development going on, all the private developers, yeah, they get a place, but why is it that it's like I had someone telling me it's going to take 6 months to get through this? And I'm finding it difficult to say, okay, let's get a loan, but I'm going to have to pay the 6 months until we can get somewhere in Washington County. They've literally told me they do not want to work in Washington County for an ADU. Okay.
So Sophia,
Yeah.
Brenda Bartlett just posted in the chat. I don't know if you can see that or not, but she is the staff assistant for Commissioner Fye. And so if you email her, she will be able to connect you with the Washington County land use team.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
Commissioner Fye is,
also,
sorry, I was going to say, is the commissioner for CPO6 area, by the way.
yeah. Sarah, I have a quick question, and maybe we've talked about this before, but when, what is the plan for this area being annexed by Beaverton?
Yeah, it's, well, I can say not until after the plan is complete, but that's something that we have yet to discuss with our city council, kind of what's the annexation strategy. And that's partly tied up with our infrastructure conversation, because some areas may be really hard to serve. And so maybe that means that we kind of, stagger or phase which areas come in. That's a possible outcome, but we just haven't had those conversations yet. We're probably still talking beyond 2023 would be my, best.
So still a while.
Isn't annexation voluntary or?
Yeah, there are only so many methods of annexation that are allowed under and defined by state law. And so there's usually some, voluntary component. There are methods where it can go to a vote. And so you need to get a majority of the property owners or a majority of the land area and land value. And so, yes, it's primarily voluntary, but if you went to that kind of vote route, I just want to, mention that, if one person said no, but 20 said yes, well, it's not really voluntary for that one person. But yeah, so that's something that I expect we'll be discussing with city council here, over the next probably 6 or 9 months.
So in general, would you say that it's looking like it will be annexed prior to developers going in and building everything, or after?
Right, so it would have to annex into the city in order for our zoning designations to apply, and so that would be a requirement. I'm thinking of the like water reservoir as an example. There could be that type of development infrastructure projects that could take place prior to annexation to the city. But thinking of kind of South Cooper Mountain and all that new housing, for it to develop at that density, it would need to be in the city.
Okay. So Sophia, the reason I was asking is because if you were annexed, then the process for your ADU would look a little bit different than it does right now. Is that right, Sarah? Because then it would need to go through Beaverton and not through Washington County.
Right.
Okay, but that's still a ways off.
Still a ways off, and it's probably still worth speaking with Washington County Land Use and Transportation, and there's a possibility that those middle housing rules, those kind of code changes haven't taken effect yet, that I'm not sure of.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, Sophia, please feel free to email Brenda, or you can email us at cpo6leaders@gmail.com, and we may be able to help send you in the right direction as well.
Thank you.
So does that help? Okay,
I appreciate it.
great. Any other questions for Sarah before we go? All right. Thank you so much for that update. It's always great to hear about, what's happening up there. So go ahead, Fran.
Sorry, I need to make two more quick comments. One is, those of you who have been around a long time remember Around the Mountain, i.e. the transportation alternative we had for avoiding 175th. That ordinance was presented to the Board of Commissioners, and there was no one to support our position at that meeting. I happened to be at another meeting. Everybody, friends, 1,000 Friends has gotten on board that saying that this is going through farmland and therefore should not happen. The Helvetia farmland people are opposing it. And unless CPO6 gets the people from SCM and Tigard and River Terrace, who are the people who would be using that road, that would just go down the tubes and all the work that we had done. I mean, it's amazing that it's coming up for actually ordinance and wanting to go, Washington County to go want to do it. So if people really want this relief, then we need to either resurrect 175th Neighborhood Association or some CPO6 getting together with some of the NACs, the Neighborhood Action Committees, advisory committees in Beaverton and Tigard, and speak up, because there wasn't a single voice.
Yeah, Fran, can I just add to that just really quickly before too many people take off, and then I'll let you get back to your other point. Anyone out there, CPO6 is really short on help. So we could really use you. If this is something that you're interested in, that you really care about, please email us at cpo6leaders@gmail.com. And then, you know, once we have more people power, we can put together groups to, you know, try to get stuff done. Right now, we're just very, very short on manpower. So, okay, go ahead, Fran.
And Casera made a really good point that development really can't happen up on Cooper Mountain until there's infrastructure in place, which was a really good point. But that does not prevent people from clear cutting or cutting down trees, because right now there is virtually no protection for trees on Cooper Mountain. So in anticipation of all this protection that Beaverton is planning, this could happen as people acquire or anticipate and just start cutting down massive amounts of trees. We've seen some huge oaks going down and also other major parcels. So if you care about trees, then I suggest you either look at treekeepers.org or just speak to your commissioner or other commissioners if you care about some kind of tree protection policy from Washington County, because there's virtually nothing to protect them. I talked to Department of State Lands and various other organizations, and it's out of everybody's hands.
Wow.
So it's only.
I know
Washington
Durham has
County.
a really, I was just going to say that Durham has a really good tree protection ordinance. And, you know, when they're actually doing some planning there right now, and they're doing a really good job of making sure that the trees are protected. So I know it's possible.
We have lots of good models. We've got lots of, the CPOs presented a great model for the Washington County. We just need to have the wherewithal from our commissioners to want to do something about it. Even if it's a small thing like Cooper Mountain, like an overlay like Beaverton is doing, you know, just start somewhere. But it's up to the people who care about their local area. And so I just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, great. And I just want to say thank you, Fran, for keeping involved, even though you're not living here anymore. You'll always be CPO6. Great. Any other comments or questions? Because Sarah did answer your question, Fran, about the commercial development in the chat. Any other questions or comments about this? Looks like Jeannie. Is it Jeannie? Go ahead and unmute.
Yes, okay, just got the unmute. Okay. It's not Jeannie, but Dick Cartwright is right beside me, and he has.
Okay.
I have to go check a pie. I'll be back.
Great.
Okay, am I on or what?
Yeah. Yep, we can hear you.
I've been up here for 53 years on top when it was gravel roads and nobody up here. It was wilderness. And I have a pretty good size woods, and I plant about 100 trees a year. And nobody ever comes up here from Beaverton and talks to us, a lot of us that have been up here for a long time. And it's completely different now that everything's on TV. Last night I went to a CPO 10 meeting, and it was packed because they're back, and it met at the Grange on, what's the name of the Grange? Out on what would that be? Farmington, out that way. Anyway, I wish if you really want a lot, we've never had the kind of people like we did back in the day when we met in person versus on TV. It just all fell apart when it is being done the way we're doing it now. And a lot of that, of course, can be blamed on the pandemic and so forth. But if you really want to open this thing up, we got to get back in buildings where we can have guest speakers and face each other versus on a TV camera. That's when it really worked. And you'll get a lot of people, because there's a lot of people up here that feel that nobody ever talked to them about what's going on up here. It just gets planned down in a cubbyhole somewhere. And I dug a pond down the valley for me on neighbor's property years ago. When the nature park ponds dry up, mine is fed by springs that are up above in my woods, and that pond is full of water all the time. So the deer and just about every kind of animal, especially coyotes, but a lot of deer come through my woods just about every morning to go down to that pond because there's always water down there. And so myself and the Almancies down below, and Ken also, we're pretty fussy about what people are planning for us up here without even talking to us. And my deer mean a lot to me, more than most people. So anyway, I hope that this organization, CPO6, or even team up with 10, which appears to be very active and planning on getting more so also, got to get back together in face and not on a TV set. That'd be my opinion. There you have it. Thank you very kindly.
Yeah, thank you, Dick. I appreciate that. That is very good input. And I agree. There's a lot to be said for building community in person. And that's definitely something that we can talk about and look at for sure. So it'd be nice to be able to see people in person. So thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Okay, well, if we don't have any other questions, I didn't really have a whole lot to share. It's not, anything super important. So since we're over a little bit, I think I might just go ahead and cut that out. I just wanted to mention really quickly that if anybody needs to get a hold of us again, I put it in the chat, but our email address is cpo6leaders@gmail.com. And we would love to hear from you if you want to be involved, if you have questions, if you have suggestions for topics that you are interested in and would like to hear about at future meetings. That would be great too. We do have a Facebook page. You can just look up, and a group also, CPO6. But we do know that not everyone is on Facebook. And good on you if you're not, because it's crazy. Anyway, we are recording this meeting and we're going to put it up on YouTube, but in order to be able to see it, you have to have a link. So if you want the link to the video of this meeting, send us an email and we will send you that link. Ken, do you have anything to add to that?
I was just going to answer, actually mention to Dick and other people that I looked into actually going back to in-person meetings about 3 months ago. And at the time, the folks at the county said we can't do it yet. So evidently, it sounds like things have changed. So I think we do need to find a new venue where to have it. The old location is no longer available to us. So we got work to do to figure out where we're going to go.
No problem.
Yeah, I know one of the options we were looking at is that sometimes the fire stations have meeting rooms, but that's still, you know, everybody's still in limbo right now. And so us meeting depends on us being able to have a place to meet that will also allow meetings in person and yada, yada, yada. So, but we are working on it, and definitely would like to be able to get back to that for Mountain Elementary. Yeah, Jen, that is a good idea. However, as PTO president of Errol Hassel, I know that it can be really tricky to be able to get into the buildings right now in the evening. You have to have a staff member present, and our teaching staff is a little overworked right now, stretched a little thin, but that's definitely something to look into and something I'm willing to look into further. So thank you for that suggestion. All right. Anything else? Great. Well, thank you so much for being here, everyone. We really appreciate it. And again, one last time, if you want to get involved, email us. We'd love to have enough people to have a steering committee. That would be great. So, all right. Well, until next time then, I hope you all enjoy this beautiful weather we're having.
You
I
bet.
think that's it.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Great. Bye, everyone.